Hello, folks. Today, a very special episode as we're interviewing the man behind Pheromone Colognes. Intriguing. Before we do that, please don't forget that if you're looking to buy fragrance samples, my recommended USA-based fragrance sampling site is decampboutique.com. Use the code MrSmelly10 for 10% off a huge array of designer and niche fragrances. And my recommended UK-based fragrance sampling site is fragrancesamplesuk.com, where the code SMELLY10 gets you 10% off a stunning range of scents. Highly recommended by me. One other small thing. Arezzo, the fantastic new release from Norton & Wilson, is still available to buy in the USA, Canada, and the UK. And we now can sell our fragrances in Europe. If you're interested in buying in Europe, you can't order through the website, but simply email us at info@nortonandwilson.com. Furthermore, don't forget the spectacular bundle deal is still available for both Gravitas Essentia and Gravitas Prom for a great price. nortonandwilson.com. Let's get into the interview. So here we are, folks. Welcome to the wonderful Matt Halper of PheromoneCologne.com. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dan. How are you? It's very, very nice to be here. Thanks for having me on board today.
It's a real pleasure. I'm doing great, thanks. And I'm really excited to find out more about you and this brand, which I've been seeing on my Instagram feed for a while. And, you know, I got to be honest, I was slightly intrigued. You are the man behind a well-established brand now. 16 years you've been around, and
That's correct.
Amazing. I didn't know that until we just spoke earlier. PheromoneCologne.com is the place where you can buy these fragrances. And at the moment, you sell in the USA and Canada or anywhere else?
No, it's pretty much, Dan, predominantly domestic here in the USA. Unfortunately, the US has some very, very strict alcohol laws that prevent a lot of manufacturers like myself from distributing into Europe and other parts of the world.
It can be very tricky, as I know myself, going the other way around. Okay, so the site is linked in the description, and we're not working together. I'm not being paid, not yet, huge amounts of money by your brand to promote this in any way. I was just really, really intrigued to find out. So let's get into it.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
So Matt, tell us a little bit about you first of all, your sort of early life, and maybe how you became involved in this weird and wonderful world of fragrances.
Well, that's a loaded question. Let's see, how can we start? Well, I mean, as a young guy growing up in New Jersey and running around in New York City all through the 80s and 90s, fashion was always a big thing with us. We always just liked to dress up and wear great colognes and fragrances and go out. Then after that, I joined the Army. I was stationed in Germany during the mid-'80s, right in the heart of the Cold War.
Wow.
And that was very interesting, a lot of fun, best time of my life. I would say. And I learned a lot of things about also fashion and fragrances and how people like to intermingle with each other, living in Europe for just short of 3 years. I was a banker in corporate America. Let's fast forward a little bit. And when the real estate market crashed in 2009, that's when I crashed. We were making huge numbers back then. They were great times, but I had to reinvent myself. Didn't know what to do. But I knew that I was going to get involved somehow, some way with fashion. So the story goes, how I got involved with this was I came home one night about 3 o'clock in the morning, sat down behind my computer, checked my emails, and I saw like a very primitive pop-up from a very, very generic pheromone cologne, very medicinal. It didn't look very interesting at all, but just something at that hour caught my eye, and I saw pheromones. And I remember learning about them in school, how insects use them to communicate and mate, and animals use them in the animal kingdom to also mate and coexist and reproduce and claim territories, etc. But it just so happens that pheromones play a very, very big part in our culture. The problem is we really just don't get to use them well. And when I figured, let's put this together, let's do about a year and a half worth of in-depth research, which I've done. I was able to pretty much put things together in place. And here we are 16 years later, PheromoneCologne.com, and we've sold probably close to 1 million bottles already worldwide.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very, very intriguing.
There's a lot of moving parts mechanically to that, but in an overall explanation, That's where we are now.
Okay, that's absolutely great. So we'll get a little bit more into the scientific stuff in a moment.
Sure.
But before we that, if you just tell us a little bit more about the brand, then what is the sort of overall idea? You're obviously using the pheromones to say that even more so than just smelling nice, they can give you this maybe chemical advantage in attracting other people. So who's your sort of target market, and what general type of fragrance are you trying to produce? Are they similar to other well-known fragrances, completely unique? And what's, maybe you can just let us, the audience, know the kind of price point and that kind of thing too.
Sure, I can. Let's address that. So, basically what we do is I work directly with one of the largest biotech companies in the world, on the planet. And I work with a very, very highly specialized niche group of scientists. And these scientists specifically and only do one thing, and that's reproduce human sexual hormones, pheromones, and molecules. Okay. Now, in society today, we really don't get to use our naturally made pheromones properly. And let me explain why very simply. It's because you can't shower. Okay. It sounds strange. To produce potent pheromones on the human body, you would not have to shower for anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
And that's kind of difficult, okay? You're going to smell bad. You're going to have dirt, bacteria, body odor, hints of urine, all kinds of nasticities, if you will, on the skin surface. But when you can remove all of those things and just basically compartmentalize the crystals, and they're microscopic, those are the pheromones that come out of ejection ports where perhaps like we sweat, perspiration comes out of, and that's where they land. And they stay on the skin. And when the skin warms up, they become airborne. Okay. Pheromones are actually airborne chemicals. And when you have components of the opposite sex that are in a very, very close vicinity, well, they smell them right in the nose, right into the brain, right into the hypothalamus, which regulates everything from sexual activity to being enticed to being in love, etc. It leads to reproduction, if you will, and that's what pheromones do. But like I said, you don't use pheromones naturally in society. I've seen these bizarre commercials, Dan, on TikTok, for example, where people are smelling armpits and they're like, oh my God, this smells so good. Oh, pheromones. Well, I'm sorry, those aren't pheromones. That's dirt, that's bacteria, that's urine and body odor. If you're into that kind of thing, that's great, but that's not what we do. So we basically take the pheromone and we reproduce it at an extremely high purity level at 99% pure. We're cutting edge with that, and there's not many people that are actually doing that today. I'd say we're probably one of the only brands out there that does that. But nevertheless, moving into the fragrances, okay? So I've been a lover of fragrances like you for a long time. But I thought,
can I just ask one before you go any further? Just one very quick question.
Yes.
The actual pheromones themselves that are in your fragrances, in and of themselves, they don't have any noticeable aroma, right?
Well, let me share that with you. There's many different types of pheromones in the male body that people can use and extract. Let's use the word andro. That is the beginning word of androstadienone, androstadienone. Those are certain names of certain hormones and pheromones in the male body that are very sexually aggressive. Okay, so we specifically use one of the many, and I've chosen to use this specific one because it doesn't really have that too terribly bad of an odor. Now you have to realize these are human sexual hormones, pheromones. They don't smell pretty. There's nothing floral or fruity about them. They smell like when you're smelling pure raw, pheromones, it's going to have a little bit of a scent to them, as sweat would. Okay, because that's basically what they are. Hormones and pheromones are ejected in the body through your perspiration glands, and they have an odor. So when you use pheromones, if you're using them just pure without any type of a fragrance in them, most of the time they're going to smell kind of off. Yeah. Okay. But the specific, when I say brand or name, the actual pheromone that we use, okay,
Yeah.
that we single out is the one that really doesn't have that terribly bad of an odor.
I get you. Okay. It's very interesting. So I've got a couple of small, quick follow-up questions from that because there's loads going through my mind as you tell me. It's very fascinating.
It is.
First of all, obviously, we all know that we've had things in fragrances for a long time, like musk or civet, which can smell gnarly, and on their own, if you smell them up close, not necessarily so pleasant. So in that sense, it's not totally new. But the difference is that those are not also pheromones. They just have a little bit of gnarliness that can work in a small dose in a fragrance. But you're actually saying that these pheromones, there is scientific evidence. I mean, it's scientifically proven that they play a role in human attraction, right?
Dan, this is what pheromones do. This is how God created the human body to work biologically. Like I said before, we just don't get to use our human pheromones properly because we can't shower for 2 to 3 weeks before we can actually produce live, active, working, potent pheromones. So it's very, very strange. How do you isolate it? Where do you find it? How do you put it together? How do you infuse it?
So my next question is, where on earth do you get these isolated pheromones? Have you got a farm of sweaty people somewhere in the desert or something? Or how do you get that? Is it from real human beings, or can you synthetically create them?
No, we do have a farm in the desert full of sweaty people. That is correct. That's where we produce and we take pheromones from, and we do all of our scientific studies in the desert. No, negative. Like I said earlier, we work with one of the largest biotech companies in the world. And what you're basically doing is you're basically copying a molecular code, almost like DNA, and you can reproduce that. And that's basically what you're doing. But you're reproducing it synthetically.
Okay. I understand, I think.
Okay, probably work better than human pheromone. Well, can't say human, I'm sorry. They probably work better than them being not synthetic because there's no toxins in there. They're pure.
Okay.
We can boost them up to a 99% purity level, and you're basically wearing pheromones on your body, if you will, that of, let's say, Superman.
Got you.
Like the perfect human being.
So it's a synthetic recreation of the pheromone of a healthy person.
That is correct. Okay. And we do the same thing with a woman.
Of course. I needed to ask that. So you can do it for female and for men.
Yes.
Very important question. Then are all of your fragrances aimed specifically either at men or women? Or are they unisex or a mixture? And if it's do they have male and female ones? Does it matter? How does that work?
There's so much out there, and it really upsets me when I see all the different variations, how people pollute the industry. You can't have, there's no such thing as unisex pheromones, okay? Male pheromones attract a female. Female pheromones attract a male. You can't combine them, intermingle, or mix. The only thing that happens when you do that is you're confusing the brain when the end user is using them and wearing them. It doesn't work that way. So when someone is wearing pure male human sexual pheromones, they're designed specifically by Mother Nature and the human body to attract females. And it's the same thing with women. When they wear female pheromones, they will attract men. That's how that works. Quite simple.
Therefore, would all of your fragrances be either aimed to be worn by men or women?
That is correct. There's no such thing as unisex.
Okay, or at least they would be, the pheromones in them will attract either men or women.
They're attracted and designed to attract the opposite sex. That is correct. Men or women, yes.
Fine. Obviously, there may be people watching who prefer to attract members of their own sex, but as far as the pheromone goes,
it's a great question.
Yeah, how would that work?
Let's talk about the gay community, because we work with a lot of people in the gay community, and we love them. So, for example, if you're a male, and you're wearing, let's say, the black Afghan, which I just absolutely love, When a male is wearing the black Afghan attracting a woman, it's the same principle as if a gay man is wearing the black Afghan cologne that's attracting another gay man, because the gay man who's attracted to the other gay man, is interested in those types of pheromones.
So
Do
you're
you
saying
understand?
if someone is gay or homosexual, they will going to be attracted to the same sex
That is correct,
pheromone. That's
because
part
what
of their
you're
sexuality.
that's
Okay.
correct, because what you're doing is essentially a man is wearing, let's say, the black Afghan, and he's trying to attract a woman, and the woman is out in a crowd and she's smelling the man's pheromones, his essence, all that good stuff. Well, she's attracted to the man. It's the same thing with a gay male. A gay male would be attracted to the male scent.
Got you. Okay.
You understand?
I was very interested to clear that up, and
Yeah.
it's a very juicy and fascinating topic. I love it. Okay.
It is.
We've done a bit of the technical stuff. That's absolutely great. Tell us a bit more about the actual products, the fragrances, and
Sure.
the hopefully wonderful smells and packaging and pricing
Sure.
and all that kind of thing, please.
Sure. So I'll tell you something, Dan. I've been a cologne fan. My gosh, it goes back into the 80s, you know? I mean, maybe even before that, maybe the late 70s, I was wearing cologne. I love colognes and fragrances like you. It's a fashion statement, it's a science. It's been something that I've been very passionate about for all my life. So, because I love the finer things in life, I believe as you do, because I've seen you promote so many different types of fragrances before, high-end ones as well. I
Yep.
really enjoy those things. So, you know, just after being such a fan, okay, from all the master fragrance houses that are out there today, I had a lot of money put away. And I said to myself, when I was doing the pheromones, we first started out, our pheromones, there were no fragrances. For a long time, there were no fragrances because the technology wasn't there to basically what we like to call infuse them together. Okay. But now, I'd say this was about 4 years ago, the technology kind of upped, and it allows us now to do things even more advanced that we could not do earlier. Hence, enter in designer imported French notes, French oils, fragrances to create what we call the private collection. And the private collection on PheromoneCologne.com is a whole separate line itself. There's 15 total bottles, and they're all scented, and they're all basically designed, if you will, from a French boutique master fragrance house who we purchase all of our oils and blends and notes.
Okay, and is that you have 15 fragrances in total?
15 total.
15,
we have 12 for men and only 3 for the women.
Okay.
Sorry, ladies. We'll hopefully have more coming up sometime soon.
Okay, so that tells me a little bit about where your market perhaps is predominantly.
Yeah, predominantly men. Correct.
Okay. And I'm going to be honest, I couldn't help noticing that some of the note listings seemed a little bit familiar, and some of the names seemed to suggest that let's say, for example, somebody who liked a certain niche fragrance might find that this one smelled similar. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely correct. For example, I'll give you an example of one. Absolutely. Like our Sacred Cherry. When I was out and about, a funny story, was in Miami years ago, and when Tom Ford first came out with Lost Cherry, when I sampled his fragrance, it was mind-boggling for me. My brain did not understand all those incredible currants and cherry fragrances and all these incredible things that Tom Ford put together to design that really set me on a mission. Okay. And the Sacred Cherry is definitely, we can't copy, you can't copy a fragrance. But what I can say is that our Sacred Cherry, it's very quite comparable to Tom Ford's Lost Cherry.
Okay. I'm glad that we can acknowledge that and talk about that, because that will be interesting for people. So if people really enjoy Creed's Aventus, which fragrance would be the best from your line?
Oh, I will absolutely share that with you. That would be the Eternal. Okay. And that was absolutely used. I mean, it's funny you asked that, because a lot of people do. The Eternal is something that took months and months to create. It's not something that smells like Creed. Why would I want my cologne to smell exactly like Creed? I don't.
Right.
But it's something that is deep. It's Very, very similar to the notes that they had put in there. It's, of course, not exact, but it's very similar. And we're very proud of it because a
Okay.
lot of people have complimented us like, wow, your Eternal reminds me of Creed Aventus. And we're like, wow, that's a great compliment to be compared to one of the masters.
Okay, that's great. So I take it, or I'm guessing you might object to the term clone then to be applied to your
No, you
fragrances.
could. We're not definitely not a clone because we
Right.
don't do that. But
Okay.
look, I mean, if I smell something that's absolutely delicious and it just affects me and moves me, wow, it just sends me on a mission to try to, perhaps outdo it or create an alternative to that.
Okay.
And that's what we've done.
All right, because there will be people in the comments or watching who'll say, "Hey, come on, it's just an overpriced alternative to Club de Nuit Intense Man or
No,
something."
no,
How
no.
would you respond to that kind of
No,
criticism?
you can't. It's nothing at all like that because we just, that's not what we're into. Look, our specialty notes and oils and everything that I put into, and I oversee everything that's being done here, and I have for the past 16 years. Everything that's put into each bottle, I oversee. So, for
Hmm.
example, when I'm working with my perfumer, okay, he's located in France. Um, He'll send me, for example, things like, hey, Matt, I put something really, really spectacular together. Here's a little vial. I'm going to send it to you. Smell it. Tell me what you think. It has this in it. It has that in it. What do you want to do? What direction do you want to go? Do you want it a little bit more fruity? Do you want it deeper? And it's a lot of back and forth experimentation. So what I can say is each fragrance, once it passes, excuse me, my nose test that this is like unreal. I would buy this because I'm a very, very picky buyer. I only
Hmm.
like to buy the best things, if you will. Once it passes my nose test, it's for sale.
Okay.
So nothing is smelling like a clone. That is
Okay.
non-existent. These are all very unique, hand-picked, handcrafted fragrances. And I can tell you this, each fragrance probably took me about anywhere between about 6 to 8 months to produce. That's how
Okay.
much goes into it.
Okay, fantastic. So maybe you could just give us maybe 2 or 3 examples of, you've mentioned a couple of them already, a couple of great places maybe to start if people wanted to try something from your brand,
Sure.
and maybe show us how they look. Of course, we're all into the packaging
Sure,
too. So,
sure. Well, for example, I'm very, very proud if anyone's ever been to the website or if you go to the website, we have a trilogy line that is the only 3 fragrances that have a grand oud in them. And the first one is Obscene, and this
okay.
is definitely based with the grand oud. And as a lot of people know, I think oud is a translation into wood,
Hmm.
and the woods are and the ouds are resins. And when you instill or install the resins in fragrances, they will enhance the fragrance perhaps a little, but it creates longevity. So these are pheromone colognes that not only smell beyond delicious, beyond deep, beyond exotic, but they're all enhanced with oud. So these things will last 2 and 3 days on your body when you're wearing them.
Okay.
And very lovely.
And
This is the arouse. And the
okay.
last in the trilogy is the lust. And I mean, this lust is like the grand luxe of a French, very, very high-end cologne de parfum for men. But these 3 are just, they're all absolutely magnificent. I wear them all the time.
And what's the connection between those 3? Why are they considered a trilogy?
Because they're the only 3 from all the 15 lines that we have that are
Hmm.
instilled with oud.
I
These are the
see.
only bottles that have oud in them, the only
Okay.
ones. Yeah.
And would those be comparable to anything else in the niche fragrance world that people have
No,
heard
no,
of?
let's absolutely not. These are, you know, the scents, they're beautiful. They're just
Hmm.
beautiful, sweet, decadent, addictive fragrances. And what a lot of people will report back to me is, especially on these 3, is that girls will tell them or people will tell them, wow, I've never smelled anything like that before. It's incredible. What is it? And that's usually the response you get from our colognes because they're all very unique. They're all masterpiece creations and they're all created one by one.
Okay, great. So it would be fair to say that while some of them you acknowledge, had a little bit of inspiration from, e.g., Tom Ford's Lost Cherry,
Absolutely.
these three
Absolutely.
that you've just mentioned, or some of the others, perhaps
Well,
are
all of them
more.
really don't have any connection to any type of a fragrancer that's out
Okay.
there. But again, I mean, I get an influence. So, for example, back to the Sacred Cherry, it's
Yeah.
not going to smell like a Tom Ford's Lost Cherry, but I was influenced to create an
Okay.
incredible, explosive cherry fragrance from Tom Ford's Lost Cherry.
Okay, I like it. Right, what's the what different kind of sizes do you have available, and how much, if you don't mind telling us, are those in US
No, of
dollars?
course not. All of these bottles, and I try to keep everything unique, at least with the private collection, they're all 50 mLs, which is a 1.75 ounce.
Okay.
When you're using these colognes, you have to realize these are high potency, pure pheromone cologne eau de parfums. They are
Hmm.
loaded, okay, not only with the fragrance, but with the pheromones. And when you spray them on, okay, you just need 2 sprays. That's it. And they will last you up to 3 days on the body, but the moment you shower, pheromones wash off.
Hmm.
Pheromones, a lot of people don't know, they're live, mechanical, living organisms. They're molecules. When you put them in oil, they die. When you put them or expose them to water, they drown. When you put these live pheromones in, let's say, candles or soaps, well, how are they going to move around and breathe? They can't. They're live, mechanical, moving beauties, and we love them.
All right, and the price?
The price on our bottles are $2.25 each.
Hmm.
That's what they cost.
Okay, all the same price.
Yes, all the same.
Okay, that's really simple for people. So go over to pheromonecologne.com if you want to check it out. And there's some interesting stuff about the brand's ethos and stuff, and all the attraction stuff, which is it might be fun for viewers to read. So do you? Here's one thing that's popped into my mind. Do you have any testimony from people? Because people will be watching this. There'll be people saying, "Come on, this is maybe pheromones are a thing, but the idea that you can put them in a perfume and suddenly be attractive." Your website says like within seconds, that there are going to be maybe even a majority of people watching this who say, come on, that's BS, and they're just selling a fragrance and adding to the price because they're putting in this BS we've all heard, goes way back, doesn't it, to the 80s or 90s, really cheap kind of pheromone sprays that you can buy.
That's correct.
And so how do you counter that, and do you actually have any at least anecdotal evidence that this stuff works?
It's a never-ending. What's the adjective we can use here on this one, Dan? It's a never-ending mystery, if you will. Well, I can't say mystery, but it's a challenge, okay? And people today are they don't believe much of what anyone really truthfully and honestly have to say. If you say something's great, the first thing that they're going to say is it's not. We have testimonials on our websites. It's up to the readers if you want to believe, that they came from actual people. They did.
Mm-hmm.
That's up to you. But how can we prove that they work? Well, there's one thing I could say. I've been in the business now for 16 years. I make a lot of money. Our clients consist of movie stars, household names.
Oh wow!
If you only knew, and if I could only share with you,
You can't. You're not going to tell tales. Okay.
I'd be in a lot of trouble, I think.
All right.
And they confide in me, our customers, for their privacy. So to put their names out there probably wouldn't be great. But
I get it.
And we've sold close to 1 million bottles. So you have to ask yourself, well, they're selling pheromone colognes. They have all these incredible customers and famous people buying from them for 16 years. Well, folks, if it didn't work, do you think I'd still be in business? Probably not.
It's a great answer. Yeah, here's my take on it. And I'm trying to do my Piers Morgan bit here and ask you to be impartial, but ask you the tough questions and play devil's advocate. But I
use
really
my own product, Dan. I mean, I could write a book on the hookups that
Ah,
happened to me from using my cologne. But it's,
yeah.
there's so many people. You just have to reach out to people. And I think if you go on the internet and you Google search, I think you will find a lot of people have amazing results that share
Here's my,
on the internet.
and I encourage people to do that. I'm
Yeah.
very open to this idea. I don't know if this is something that would, so to speak, turn a donkey into a racehorse, but any advantage we can give ourselves has to be a good thing. My take on it is,
Sure.
if you are able to go and buy these and enjoy the great smells, there's two ways I would look at it. If it is actually giving you this scientific advantage and attracting other people, well, that's absolutely fantastic. As you say, how are you
Yes.
ever going to know? Because maybe you were just on a great night and you had all the chat up lines right and you looked great or whatever. They're never going to say, I really like you because of your pheromones. So I guess it's hard to prove.
No. Well, listen, they're
You
not
can't
going to
prove
know.
it.
They're
No.
not going to know. You don't
Yeah.
tell someone you're wearing your pheromone colognes. You
Exactly.
put it on, you go out, you forget you have them on, and you have the time of your life.
Exactly. And the other thing I would say is, even if we're really cynical and, perhaps we're not totally convinced by the science, I think if people buy it, whether or not it's definitely having a scientific effect on every person they meet or not, if it gives them that extra confidence, that can only be a good thing too. So, if you believe it, it's kind of working already. I know you're probably not going to like that way of looking at it.
No,
But
listen, whatever helps. But,
yeah.
what I can say is this. So I've been, manning this now for going on 16 years. And, we have people that call in and they want to place their orders on the phone. They don't want to do it online. They want to speak to me or they want to speak to Gabriel or
Okay.
Gabriel Reese is our director of global operations. Everyone, he's not here at the moment, but it's Gabriel and myself that pretty much run the front room. And so we always ask people, always, how did you like your sacred cherry? And the stories come in. How did you like the black Afghan? Oh my God, Matt, I can't, you got to hear these stories. Well, I don't want to hear the stories because I've been hearing stories for 16 years. I have my own stories, if you will.
Okay.
So we just love to hear response. And I have to say, in 16 years, maybe I've spoken to 3 people who, for whatever reason, just didn't have a good response. But you don't know what the reasons were, But
Yeah.
3 people out of hundreds and thousands. I mean,
That's great.
you tell me, Dan. I mean, I'm very inquisitive. I collect data from everyone that uses our product as much as I can, and I want to hear everyone's story, and they're not shy to share.
Guys, if anyone watching this has tried these fragrances, we'd love to hear about it in the comments down below. One thing I must ask, because I know people will be asking this, is there any way people can buy samples if they don't?
No, it's unfortunately not. It's a great question, Dan. And I have to say, if we were able to produce samples from all the requests that we've had pretty much since inception, probably costs close to $1 million by now. So we don't do samples. It's not a cologne. It's not just like alcohol and oils. There's a lot of biotechnology that goes on here, and people don't realize that. Oh, pheromones and fragrances. You have no idea how expensive it is to produce these things and the time that's involved to produce these colognes. These are masterpiece creations. There's nothing like them out there that I know that exists today in the world.
I'm very fascinated. I actually want to try them, and I hope we can work out a way to make that happen.
Dan, here's the thing. I would love to send you a bottle, okay? But you can't send it to England.
There may be someone I can probably get someone to get one in America and maybe get it to me somehow, but we'll work it out. We'll work it out.
Do so.
So your point there, of course, which I've kind of forgot to ask about, but you've kind of answered it for me. So with the pheromone element, these are going to be, you would say, costing more to make per mil than a normal perfume, right?
Well, without a question, pheromones are expensive, and especially when you're pumping them up to a 99% purity level. The machinery alone costs close to $1 million. It's the tech equipment. It's beyond imagination. So, again, let me just share this with everyone. When you're working with human biological and types of reproductions of hormones and pheromones that come from the human body, folks, this is not a cheap thing to do.
No. I'm absolutely fascinated by this. I've asked you some hard-hitting questions, but I always want to be well. Good. I'm very grateful for you for coming on the show. And as someone with my own small fragrance brand, I'm very much on your side. Congratulations on what's obviously been great and long sustained success. I really encourage people to, at the very least, go and check out the PheromoneCologne.com website. And if they want to check you out on Instagram, is it what do they just search? Pheromone Colognes?
I think it's Pheromone Colognes. It's very, very nice page, and we have some nice things coming out this year. I don't know if you saw the Grand Cherry Oud.
Oh,
that's
no, I
coming
didn't.
out. Oh okay. My God, Dan, can we talk about that, or we got to cut it short?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, ouds. Okay.
Yes.
I can't tell you how much money I've spent. I must have tested 15 different ouds already. Yeah. And have you ever smelt the raw oud in the resin form? They're not pretty.
Don't think
I smell very nice.
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, they don't smell very nice when you're smelling the pure resin. It's they're kind of bitter, but they do their thing. So you have to realize you're putting an oud, which is a resin from wood, into a fragrance, and you have to figure out how that oud, is so meticulously designed when it branches out and does its magic, how it's going to affect the fragrance. And the only thing that does that is time. And the Grand Cherry Oud that's coming out, I put a lot of time and a lot of effort into that, and it's absolutely magnificent. So that's coming out, I think, in summertime, right? The Grand Cherry Oud, and it's going to be a lot of fun for people. And you'll see that pretty much at the top of the Instagram page now. So you'll know you're in the right place when you see that.
We'd love to have you back on perhaps when it's out and we can discuss that one some more. And that has real oud in it then, not synthetic.
No. I mean, the Lusk has oud.
Yeah.
The Arouse has the Grand Oud. And the Obscene has the Grand Oud. But the Grand Oud Cherry also has the Grand Oud. But there's some specialty items in there, natural, of course, that we'll just keep to ourselves for now.
All right, guys.
Don't want to ruin the surprise.
This sounds like a brand that I really want to learn more about, and I take my hat off.
In London. I really wish we were.
Perhaps our paths will cross at some point. I take my hat off to you because it's the first time I've known of a pheromone fragrance that is not simply a rather sort of cheap thing that you find for a bargain bin price, where the pheromone is maybe the main thing and the smell's not. It's the first brand I've known that has a kind of luxury fragrance ethos with the pheromone thing combined, which sounds like a winning business proposition to me, and I think you've done well. So hats off to you guys.
Thank you. One thing I have to say, Dan, you get what you pay for in this industry. If you're going to buy, like you said, something from like a very inexpensive, expensive thrift store, something you see online for $30, I mean, you're going to get what you pay for. Just understand that when you're working with pheromones and biotechnology, it's not cheap. It's quite expensive.
I am, to say the very least, intrigued. I want to learn more, and I hope I'm going to be able to try them soon. Guys, let us know what you think about. I think it's been fascinating. I hope you're going to have a YouTube channel soon, because I think you're a great talker and a great personality. And it's a real waste if I'd love to see you start that, because I think you could be a really great personality. The fragrance community, the online world is so much fun, and there's always little controversies, and people are intrigued by new things. And you've brought something new to the table, and I feel very privileged to have shared that with my audience. So we'll see you in the next episode, guys. Thank you so much to Matt Halper. It's PheromoneCologne.com. Link is in the description. Check these guys out. I'll see you in the next one. Remember, whatever we're doing in life, let's project. And although sometimes life may stink, at least we can always smell good, right? Bye-bye.